A little bit about Superb and myself. Maybe we could start with me first. My name is Zaedo. It's very hard to pronounce. I think my parents made it up. But it's still very nice. I've been building online business since 2008. And I've practically been doing it with remote teams, either through outsourcing or hires. One of the important things here, I'll just put this in my pocket. One of the most important things here is that I've been a bit successful with that constellation, and I've also had some failures. I'll tell you more about that in a second. I have built interesting startups, everything from product related to online. The one I built before Superb was something called trustingali.com, which was a copy of Trustpilot for Alibaba. And that was built 100% with Fiverr and Upwork freelancers, right? But now we are at Superb, and this is the really big one. So to tell you a bit about Superb, we're a platform for restaurants. We are currently with restaurants in 100 plus cities. And we're working with the mid to high-end segment in the market of restaurant businesses. So essentially Superb, we saw a massive gaps in the experiences that restaurants are offering. And these gaps exist because technology is very bad and outdated. And that basically means that restaurants are compromising in the way they do experiences, and that also means that they're leaving money on the table. And why is that important? Well, essentially, a restaurant that has access to the right insights, which you might have been at before, are actually able to deliver the right experiences to every guest. Some of you might recognize restaurants from Noma, to Geranium, to Relais, and so on and so forth. So we saw that they have a competitive advantage compared to the rest of the market. So how many have been to Noma? And how many of those who have been to Noma have been to Madklubben? There's a huge difference, right? So the main difference here is when you go to Noma, they probably recognize you and know more about you. When you go to Madklubben, you're probably just one of many. And this is interesting because we saw that when guests they get a personal experience, they spend more money, they leave better reviews, and they spread the news with the network. So essentially, everyone sitting here who've been dining at a restaurant who delivered a great experience is actually a growth driver for that restaurant. And today we see that most of the growth that restaurants they see comes from word of mouth. So we introduced the first all-in-one platform on the restaurant market or the restaurant space. And this includes all the tools you need to actually manage your restaurant in practice. And we did that because we saw huge blockers in the current software on the market. Either they didn't want to integrate or they were very defensive in working with us. And the interesting thing here is the data hidden in all these tools. And that sounds very hard, but that was actually the really easy part. So the secret sauce is actually all the nice, I was about to say juice that's hidden in these systems. It's everything from the average spend of every restaurant diner to their preferences, to which wine they drink, to their allergies and so on. So we introduced guest experience management. I like to say the platform that collects your data and builds beautiful experiences based on that. This is one of our restaurants in Oslo, actually in Norway. We have a lot of those. It sounds nice. But the interesting thing is, where did we start? So how many of you have actually started a business today? Okay, that's around 70%. And the rest of the 30%, are you considering to build a business today, an online business? Yeah, got it. So the way I actually started is what I call the Zaedo Founders Roadmap to Business. And that's pretty messy, pretty dirty. It's probably good keywords to actually describe how we got here, right? So if we take it from the initial step, I essentially have been to many restaurants. I never went to restaurants like Noma or these high-end ones. I went to everything from, cafes to Madklub and so on, and that mid-level, like potentially many of you here. And then I just saw that, when these people would recognize you, you would get that really nice feeling, and you would feel a bit special, right? We all know that feeling. Then I joined Joe & the Juice, the global juice chain now, and I saw there that if you remember people's name, and you don't have to look handsome, but if you remember people's name, they'll come back. So I wrote down those assumptions, and I went back to the restaurants out there. I talked to Rasmus Munk from Alchemist back then when he was 24, I think. Now he's 28 and just got 2 Michelin stars. You probably know Alchemist, right? The big, yeah. And I went and talked to, a lot of star chefs and a lot of other chefs or restaurateurs that had normal restaurants. Then I found a designer, and that designer was in the first stage just somebody I found at CBS. I asked around, and I met someone, and I told them, I'll give you 300 kroner if you just do these mock-ups for me. And that worked, but it was very scrappy, and that designer didn't really buy into the vision, and I didn't have that much money, so I had to go online. And back then it was called freelancer.com and something else. Now it's called Upwork, right? So I found these freelancers. I think they were sitting in Azerbaijan and Bangladesh, and it was actually pretty funny because they didn't even know each other, but there was like a common room where you could put them in and then tell them, do this, and they would produce whatever you would ask them to do without thinking. That was kind of like the first step. But other than that, we went back and validated the designs, and then I realized, what I need to do is I need to find a freelancer online that can help me just build a quick and dirty MVP that will show them something, right? It needs to show them that there is a small vision in this product. And after we did that, I went back and I asked if they wanted to pay for it. A lot of them said no, and they were super afraid of just, touching something new, even though they had been super helpful. So I went back and I tried to hustle my freelancers. That's the honest truth. I essentially just tried to promise, everything to these freelancers and tell them, well, if you help me just build the next version or the first version of this product, I can go out and sell it, then I can come back and I'll pay you more, and then we talk equity later and so on and so forth. I'm not sure they bought into it, but anyway, it worked. So I continued to squeeze the lemon, and then I had to bootstrap a bit more, find the believers, what you call them, and then we raised a small round from PreSeed Ventures and Seed Capital. So this was a pre-seed round of 1.2 million euros. At that time, I had a very decent CTO, or maybe I would rather call him a technical lead, who I found through freelancing, right? And then I just started to create some noise around the brand. Superb is not that well known in Denmark, but it's well known among restaurateurs. And then I stopped and I realized, okay, I think I probably need to find a professional CTO because it's not really going anywhere. And then I met Ricardo here. I basically just went online, browsed LinkedIn. I found like 5-6 candidates, and then I met him. And the interesting part of this whole experience is that, from my perspective, if you're early days for the 30% in this room that are starting up, and if you don't have a lot of money, and you can find co-founders that can build it for you, like in my case, then you need to hustle your way through. That's seriously the best advice I can give anyone, because you need to just find the right freelancers, sweet talk them a bit. That's why that's actually an important DNA, I would say, of being a CEO of a company. And don't waste time looking for co-founders or engineers, because they won't really buy into what you're doing. I had a lot of meetings, I wasted a lot of time, and they buy into it when they actually see customers, when they see traction in something in the market. And then it's okay that it's a bit messy because you can professionalize later. This is what we did more than a year ago now. Just focus on building something. And then something that I see a lot of people probably can relate to is working with freelancers or hires that are distributed that promise you things will be ready on this specific deadline. So on. How many have tried that? Of the people who are, and it never, they will never reach that deadline, right? It's pretty naive to think. And the reason why they say it is because they will probably never meet you in real person. So it's okay to hide behind a screen. And then raise money at the right time. There's a time where you see that the business won't really move further. And this is where you need to hire somebody who can professionalize your organization and help you build the right teams. And then, in my case, I did not think I had the competency to do that. I wanted to continue also building remote teams, and we are not only doing that in product, but we're also starting to do it with custom experience now. So I hired a person like that, and he's going to give you one big lesson how to actually do this, because it's working really well. So give Ricardo a big hand.
So this is why Zaedo hired me, actually. Like you know, you need a...
Just take it out, it has to be a little bit.
Okay. You need a great profile picture on your LinkedIn to get hired for, you know, one of the best startups in Denmark. So that's what I did. A little bit about me. I've been grinding for 13 years in startups, different countries, and I put there 7 years because each year on a startup is like a dog year. It's equivalent to 7 years. I don't know if you know that, but that's so you can do the math there. I've been more or less 10 years working with distributed teams. Actually, I had an exit in São Paulo, Brazil, and my team was based in Romania. And now I'm in Europe and I have a team based in Brazil. So I'm always, you know, getting away of my team somehow, but this is the situation now. Besides Superb, I'm a startup advisor. Companies like Plato Science, with you know, the brain stimulator you can see on the picture is one of the startups I advise as well. So Superb. Why did I came into Superb? When I arrived to the company, when we had the initial talks, I saw that Superb had interesting traction. So when I look at my time as a CTO, I also look at as an investor, right? Should I invest my time in this company or not? And me and Zaedo, we have 10 years different, I think, right? 10 solid years difference. And I saw a young team coming up, and you know, Zaedo and Martin, our other co-founder, they are true hustlers, right? They bootstrap this from nothing to something. When I arrived to the company, they had more than 200 restaurants, and they had already monthly recurring revenue. And I saw that they didn't really understand even what they had in terms of numbers. They didn't know how successful they were already 1 year ago, more or less. So I identified that as an opportunity. I was working at TradeShift for 3 years as a engineering director there. And I saw the opportunity, like, why not going back to my roots, which is early stage startups, and help these guys building up a great business, right? So that's why I entered TradeShift. And of course, you know, I think Zaedo has a great charisma. He's a great CEO. And I also bought into the team that was there as well. Yeah, so we are basically 8 people now. And when I started there, basically 3 developers left on the second week. There was 3 developers in-house, and I did some changes, and they just left, right? One of the things I did was to kill Jira. Because when I come as a CTO, I want to see also who is going to withstand to the changes you have in a startup. Not every professional wants to actually withstand and actually go in that road where a lot of things will change, pressure will amount. So that was my way of testing the team that was there. If I do a small change, how is the team going to react? And maybe it was not the only reason they left, but they left three of them in the same week. So I had a problem, right? So what can I do now? Because I had experience with a remote team, I talked with Zaedo and I said, what about, we go with a strategy of hiring remote. I can tap into my network and bring some good guys to the team, and then we'll figure out this situation that just happened, right? Because at the time you had a CTO that was actually remote and the 3 engineers were in the company. So there was a problem of leadership as well, and they were not used at someone coming in and saying, okay, now I'm going to lead the team, and things will be driven in a different way. So why a distributed team? I think, first of all, I don't want to compete with Tradeshift, Trustpilot, all of the banks that are now creating innovation, all of the fintechs. I want to get away of that competition for talent. Also, getting the best engineers at lower cost. Here, a good engineer is, it can go to, I don't know, like it's a lot of money. There's no ceiling for engineers today in Copenhagen. So a startup with the budget that we have, we could not really hire the best. So this way I could get the best engineers at 1/3 of the cost in Brazil, because I had a network there and I know the space in São Paulo, and I know how competitive it is and what are the market rates there. So ability to scale quickly, we could figure out a new team in a matter of 1 month, which is kind of a record time, and we didn't lose the traction, or we didn't have a big problem, right? So we were able to actually catch up. And the several time zones. For example, my team now is working at this point in time, and it will be still working until 10, and it's normal hours for them. So that means if I have a bug in production that is actually blocking the restaurants, they will figure it out, because they are working at this time during the service in Europe, which our restaurants are mainly based at, right? Yeah, so for me, and maybe this is not for in everyone's perspective, but for me, distributed teams work if you are not a micromanager, right? So if you want that control, to see the person there, to see if they are working or not, it's not for you. You should not do it. It doesn't work for that type of personality, for that type of leader. But if you are like a leader that trusts the team, and you don't see them, seated at the desk, and you can actually measure performance in different ways, then I think distributed teams can work very well for you. So I tried distributed teams in these companies, different companies around the world. Tradeshift, for example, had teams in offices in different locations, but usually you could have a team that actually have one engineer in Copenhagen, another one in Romania, and another one in San Francisco. So a team could be actually based in the different offices. Yeah, so in terms of recruitment, I think it's important that technical leader really works on their profile and personal brand on LinkedIn. I think it's extremely important nowadays to have that, to attract talent, right? Because the best like to work with the best. So you need to work over time in your career and in your personal brand as well, and make sure that you have all of the experience in your profile, because when you are hiring end to end, that's what I do at least, you need some kind of initial foot in the door. So you need to really work on the profile, make sure that you have experience and build experience over time as well. That's why I also tend to get more experience off my full-time job, talking with other startups and try to help them, so I can get more and more of that experience, different cases, etc., different systems. Yeah. So once you talk with them on LinkedIn, you can schedule a phone screen. A phone screen is usually 30 minutes, so I tend not to spend a lot of time on a phone screen, but it's a very intense process. So basically I focus on profile, on the motivations, communication, and how those professionals handle conflicts. Usually after half an hour I can have a sense of type of personality and if that's a match or not for our team. If that's a match on 30 minutes, I try to have a code exercise that they can do at home. Usually it's a pretty difficult code exercise because people that are not really engaged and they don't feel it's a match for them, they will drop immediately. So you don't spend the time having to review a small code exercise. So actually I asked them today to build a booking system with different characteristics. It can take a couple of days or more to do the project, but at least I know the ones that will do it, they are serious about the opportunity. After that, I go with them, and they need to run me through the code, show me what were the considerations, and why they did certain things in the code, and see how they work. And on that code interview, I also do a live code session, so I see how they think under pressure as well. I think it's very important to have like a simple exercise where they have to show the skills right there, and you can get a lot of insights with this. After that, if the person does very well, they meet the team, and there's a final culture fit assessment by the co-founders. So in Superb now, all the co-founders are interviewing everyone that comes in, just to make sure that we agree this is a culture fit person, so we should hire this person. So on the interview process, I think the decision needs to be hire, no hire. So avoiding maybes is a plus. Startups, there's not much time to, let's figure out this. If your gut feeling is saying it's a maybe, don't do it. Sometimes it's hard, but just don't do it. If it's a maybe, just drop it, go to another candidate and try out more candidates. And the offer for, if it's a yes, of course, the offer should take into account the country employment rules. So it needs to match basically what they would get offered in a local company. And it should be a fair offer and comfortable for both parties. Yeah, so hiring is extremely tough. So thinking that you can actually get it right, I would say that most of the time you fail at hiring. So, and this is quite harsh, guys. I'm being very honest here. I think for startups, we need to be very fast taking decisions, and editing the team is actually extremely important. So if a person is not working in the first 3 months, I would say that you should take a decision on it and not prolong that stay. Actually, now we're, in tech, it's not like that person will not have a job or anything. There's other places that person can thrive, and if it's not a match for your company, you should not drag that along, as long as you manage the expectations from the beginning. You say that, right? In the first 3 months is a trial period, and if it's a match, we'll keep you. If not, you need to find another company to work for. And I tend to be very honest initially because I'm hiring the best. And to hire the best, if you don't do this, it's very difficult. So yeah, think about this. I know that especially in Denmark, this is a touchy subject, but I think for distributed teams especially, you really need to think about these things. And also just think that in tech, there's no engineers that are out of the job. That also helps, right? Yeah, in terms of tools and setup, I try to be a tool agnostic. But if a tool is actually at the center of a conversation, I tend to kill that tool because we are not talking about the real problems, we are talking about the tool. And usually with Jira, that's what happens. People are talking about Jira, not actually fixing the problems we have in a startup, right? So if a tool is actually making a lot of noise and people are focusing the conversations around that tool, I tend to kill that tool until I find one that is completely silent and no one is talking about it, just works, right? So I ditch what it does not work, and I avoid trends. So there's a lot about this trendy. What tool should we use? I think each team needs to figure out what tool works and what tool is actually silent for them, but not really pay attention to what others are doing. So just try out and kill tools that do not work for you. And continuous delivery is very important for teams to have. So, continuous delivering code to at least to a staging environment, because if they are in a different time zone, you want to arrive in the morning and you need like an environment where you can test the code, or potentially even just bug fixes that are done overnight, and then when I wake up I can just validate that in production and see that everything is working correctly. I will say though, like a great tool that we added, and it was already in the company, it's called Full Story. Full Story records the sessions of the users, and after each release we can see actually live what's going on. Is our release actually working? Do we have a problem? Etc. This is extremely good for distributed teams because they are not necessarily close to the end user, right? So we can see exactly each release, how that impacts the end user. Who knows what this is? Anyone?
Manifesto.
Yes. Yes, Agile Manifesto. So think about that, right? Like Scrum and all of the, this is the Agile Manifesto, and no one talks about this. When people talk about Agile, it's like Scrum, processes. The first line is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And we are talking about Agile and Scrum. It's not about the process, right? It's about how you work, the organic work, the day-to-day, not about the tools or anything. So think about actually the manifesto that they wrote. Now we lost that. Should we get it back? I think so. Because engineers like to work this way, actually. So actually keeping a light process, it's extremely beneficial to motivate the team. Usually productive engineers hate, heavy processes. Think about that. So as a tech leader, I always tell them, don't worry, we are not going to put more processes in. So I try to give, of course, as you grow, then it's a balance, of course, but try to keep the process as light as possible, as simple as possible. So we keep a 2-week sprint with some goals at the end of the sprint, and we focus on speed, quality, and an iterative process. So building robust small iterations and avoiding like big bang releases, right? Like avoid the waterfallish kind of culture, having a big feature and then deploying that. I think you should always think in a MVP. What is the minimum viable feature? If it's a big feature, try to break that down, what is a minimal viable part of that feature that can be usable and shipped. The culture should be remote first. So the entire company, even if you have an office and you have a remote people, the entire company should be remote first. This takes a little bit of effort for everyone to be on board with that, because salespeople, maybe they don't care that the tech people are remote. So it's the job of a tech leader actually to talk with everyone in the company and push everyone to actually write on Slack more, give news about different departments on Slack, so these people don't feel detached. So it's important that they feel part of the team. That's why I don't believe in building products with outsourced teams, especially at the stage we are. I think you need people that are vested in the product, that want to build the product together with you, because you need that passion as well. And usually with outsourced companies, you don't get that, right? You don't get the other side of it, which is them contributing to the business as well, right? You maybe can write a spec and then they will deliver that, but maybe depending on the company, of course, but I think the experience I have is that it doesn't really help you to build a good product. And again, this is only my view on it, and it's very pragmatic, but maybe someone will get inspired by this, and I understand there are different scenarios where this could work as well. We basically are assumptions free. What this means is, like, even if we have a great idea, we need to prove that idea somehow, even if we are 100% sure that idea is a good idea. So we try to be very assumptions free. So you don't see, in my team, you don't see people, we should do this or should do that. No, it's all about the testing and the iterations and testing the assumptions. And we are kind of flat, but in the end, decisions need to be made, right? So, I think dwelling on decisions with the team is not a good thing, right? I think that can kill a little bit of the speed. So the leader should ultimately take a decision if there's an impasse. No one is actually agreeing on anything. So we should come in and take a decision. Fail-friendly, what that means is you need to be able to recover from failures fast. So that's why, like, tools like Full Story, you can catch the error. As long as you have a mechanism of reverting those errors, then everything will be fine. Because if you put a lot of gates for quality, speed actually gets affected. So you get a little bit slower if you have like a big QA department and then you have a long process of quality. So at least in this stage, we tend to be more like, okay, we know that we'll fail, but as long as we fail fast and recover fast, that will be fine. And it has been fine, actually. We tend to have a very transparent culture and waste repellent. Waste repellent is about, those conversations that don't move the needle. We try not to have those. So we are very pragmatic when we talk with each other in the team. And I am also speaking about that. Speaking like when it's over engineering or talking about something that doesn't really move the needle for the business, right? So always pay attention to where you put the time with your team. And I think this applies not only for remote teams. The team motivation is about communication, merit-based. The performers are recognized in my team, and keeping the level high. Keeping the level high, it's very important. And usually when you hire the best, they want to be around the best. So you need to keep that mentality in the team as well. Clear written specifications is a good starting point as well. I think you need to write a little bit more of the ideas you want the team to execute on. Of course, they are involved in this process of writing the specifications, but I think it's good in a distributed team that you write everything down that is agreed, and it needs to be more specific than when you have a team in-house. So I think it's extremely important. Lean culture. So we only hire when we actually feel the pain. So only when I'm in pain, I start to hire. And I think that's a good metric. Instead of hiring ahead, we actually measure that, are we feeling pain? Do we have a huge backlog that is important to tackle now that we are not doing? And I ask these questions every time. And if we are feeling pain, then we start hiring. And at the moment, we are hiring because I'm feeling a lot of pain.
From me.
Thanks, Zaedo. Continuous feedback, one-on-ones every second week, one-on-ones with the individuals in the team. Call is a very good way to talk about things outside work, just to get to know themselves. Another thing that is not here, but that we do is virtual coffees between the engineers and the rest of the team, the rest of the company. So they feel more they are part of the company. Also, investing on career plan initially is very good as well. So the engineers feel that there is a progression in the company. Some perks, of course, and avoiding divas is very important. So, that engineer that is super bright, but is just an asshole and puts down everyone, not in my team. I think I saw a lot of that in my career, like super genius that bring everyone down. It doesn't work in startup. So you need the right personalities in place to actually build a startup that actually can succeed, because 90% will fail or more. I don't know what is the number, Nicolaj, but
Something like that.
so, that kind of engineer that, he's so bright, but he's causing chaos, he's causing people to hurt. Usually, you are only seeing the productivity aspect of it. You are not seeing that you cannot have a team around that person. So you should avoid that. It's very, very important. It's one of the things that I'm always looking at. Personality. You need good people that are productive but have a nice personality, right? That can play with others, etc. So this is how we work. The CTO should be close to the business, even if you have a remote team. I think the CTO needs to be with the CEO and product manager. I think designers depends on the project. I think the product manager needs to be also close to the business. Designers, I saw it work with both, right? So you can have remote, but it really depends on the skills of the product manager as well, if you can play with that as well. So it depends on the nature of the product. The remote engineers, designers, QAs, data analysts. This is more or less how it works, and you can think this in a scalable, in a more scalable way with a tribe concept from Spotify. I don't know if you heard about this, but basically you can have like the same model and apply that to the different areas of the business. And then maybe you have a big area of the product that you can call this is a tribe X, and then you can scale that way in terms of distributed teams. I could get more into this, but this is another topic. Some resources. This is a great book by this Danish guy. Do you know this guy, DHH? Yeah, Ruby on Rails creator. Very, very nice book. It's based on the experience. he got from Basecamp, which is a remote company. Also, this book by Odwin is very good. This one is for interviews. It gives you some ideas how to interview engineers. Very, hand-to-hand kind of perspective, the process and everything. And I took a lot of ideas on our process from this book. So it's very handy, from Joel Spolsky, which is the Trello guy, I think, Trello co-founder. Another resource is this cool podcast by a GitHub developer. It's called Healthy Hacker Podcast, and you have an episode just around remote teams. And another podcast with an episode regarding remote teams as well.
Take that at the end.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for coming.